What's going on, everyone? This is Gonzo Herrera, and welcome back to the Rise41 Podcast. This is where high performers come to rebuild themselves from the inside out, where optimization isn't vanity, it's responsibility, and where discipline isn't punishment, it's identity. And today we're going to talk about something that is very personal and hits hard, and hopefully I can share my experience and my thoughts on this with all of you to help you. And it is this. We're talking about reinventing yourself in the third act of life. Not a midlife crisis, okay? Not panic. We're not trying to look 25 again. That's not the objective of this conversation. We're talking about a deliberate reinvention, because here's the truth. If you're listening to this in your late 30s, 40s, or 50s, you're not winding down, you're refining, okay? So let's get into it. All right, Act One. Let's talk about Act One. And divide is so dramatic, I know. But let's talk about the shift from survival to design in your life stages. And what do I mean by that? So most people, I know I did, live in default mode. And that's basically in your 20s, you're concerned with survival. How do you survive? How do I do things? How do I get these things done? How do I move my career forward? The survival, just getting your bearings of being a self-sustaining adult. That's what you're doing in your 20s, hopefully. In your 30s, you're all about proving. Now you've survived, you've shown you've survived, you made it into your 30s. Now you're advancing your career. You're proving that you know what you're doing. You're showing that attitudes and aptitudes that will shape your life and that will further your career and life progression. That's your 30s. Now, in your 40s, you start feeling pressure. The 40s are defined by pressure because this is when you figure, for most people, this is midlife, 40s. This is half your life right here. Okay? So you're talking about the pressure to, okay, what am I doing? Is it working? Is it something that's going to further my future goals? Is it sustainable? Is it going to allow me to retire the way I want to retire in the future? Are my life goals, whatever those may be, being met, or do I have a plan or a path in order to meet those? And then for a lot of people, the 50s and above, it's sadly enough, resignation. And what do I mean by resignation? I mean, like, a lot of people think, well, that's all I got. I'm going to retire in a decade, maybe 15 years. So whatever I've done so far, this is what I got. They just resign themselves to that reality. No interest in changing. Hopefully you got things figured out if you're going to be like that way. But in any case, a lot of people go into that whole resignation kind of mental mode. So let me show you and propose this to you. What if that third act isn't decline? What if it's the first time you actually gain leverage? Because think about this. Now in your late 40s, early 50s, let's say early 50s, just to keep this thing moving, and for better context, and say I'm a mid-50s person. What is it that you can do to gain leverage at this age? Because you have tools now that you didn't have before. You've got some scar tissue wisdom for sure. You have been around the block more than a few times, got into a few scrapes, got the scars, bought the t-shirt. So you have life experience now to draw from. That's scar tissue wisdom. That's harder. You've developed, hopefully at this point, through observation, life experience, again, emotional pattern recognition. Okay? You can recognize where emotions come into play, how they work for you, how they work when you communicate with other people. So that pattern recognition is a very handy tool, and we'll discuss more about that in a minute. You also are more financially aware. By now, by your mid-50s, you better have your financial game pretty organized, or at least understood, where you understand compound interest and investments and retirement and, the long-term goal, strategic goal versus your tactical goals. What can I do to ensure that brighter future, right? Fourth, biological awareness. The clock is ticking. You're in your mid-50s. You know that you're about to start that third act of life. You've gone from survival to pressure and build-up and development, and now you're in that third stage, which hopefully will not be resignation, okay? Because now that you also have The fifth thing, which is the ability to see long-term consequences because you lived long enough to see how some of your decisions have shaped your life for good or for ill, but hopefully in a way that you learn. That's the important piece. So now, with all these tools in place, scar tissue wisdom, emotional pattern recognition, financial awareness, biological awareness of your mortality, memento mori, if you will, and the ability to see long-term consequences, you're no longer guessing now. Now you're calculating. And the third act isn't about becoming someone new. That's not it. It's about becoming intentional by taking control and directing your future and how this third act is going to play out. Because believe it, in the play that is your life, you are the director, you're the script writer, and you're the main actor. It's all you. So, Act 2, let's talk about the physical piece, because this is actually the easiest piece, the physical reinvention. This is where your body becomes a weapon again, just to be dramatic, but it's where you can effect some change. So let me set the stage for you. If you feel old, it's usually because you're inflamed, you're under-muscled, under-recovered, and probably overstressed. It's not because you're aging. Don't get it backwards. Everyone gets this backwards. Everybody thinks like, I'm getting old, therefore I have more inflammation, I don't have as much muscle, I'm under-recovered and overstressed. It's the other way around. Those are the factors that make you feel older or age you. Okay. So it's really important that you shift that mindset. Okay. Because one mindset of, oh, I'm just aging is that victim passive, oh, well, I can do nothing about it, resignation that we talked about. We don't want that. We want to take control of the things that we can control. Okay. So this third act, your body should look different. It should not be fragile. It should not be soft, and it shouldn't be like, hey, I used to train back in the day. I could lift 4 plates or whatever it is. No. Your body at this stage should look engineered, okay? It should look like a deliberate act of you keeping it in the best shape possible. So, and why do you want that? Because you want not just lifespan, but you want health span, quality of life. I would much rather live with incredible quality of life where I can move, where I can lift, where I can play with my grandkids, that kind of stuff until I'm 80 versus living till I'm 90 or 100, but I'm like bedridden and blind and fat and insulin resistant and everything is just the waiting room, to death. That's not what you want. That's not quality of life, okay? So let's talk about the actual 5 physical upgrades of the third act that you have to make and do and keep in mind in order to maximize that third act. The first one, muscle as longevity insurance. This is not about looks. I mean, that comes with it. That comes as a side effect. But this is about health. And why do you want muscle as longevity insurance? What do I mean by that? First, weight resistance training and building muscle prevents sarcopenia, the loss of muscle as we age, because yes, this is true. If you do nothing about it, you will start losing muscle gradually as you age. That's just a fact. That's just how it is. But you can combat it with resistance training and proper nutrition, for example. So sarcopenia prevention, very important. That's because your body, your muscle is that longevity insurance. Also, having a good base of muscle helps with your insulin sensitivity. And insulin sensitivity and your control of your blood sugar is critical for life in so many ways. Your brain function, your cognition, your physical health and well-being. Every system thrives on having that insulin sensitivity working for you rather than against you. Third thing, related, hormonal resilience, making sure your hormones are right where they should be in order to be healthy. Okay, this is where hormone replacement therapy and or testosterone replacement therapy or whatever it is that your need is based on your individual person makeup condition. This is where it's really important to have hormonal resilience, because having a balanced set of hormones sets you up for success in everything else, because the systems are operating as they should, nutritionally, for exercise, for rest, etc. If your hormones are out of whack, it's going to affect everything, and it will absolutely affect things in a way that will escalate and snowball, not in a good way. And the last reason that muscle is longevity insurance is that it's actually cognitive protection too. So having a good base of muscle helps with all of these things, which you want, especially as you age. You want to maintain and conserve. Um, Second piece of the 5 physical upgrades of the third act is mobility as performance currency. And what do I mean by that? You got to watch your spine, your hips, your ankles, your shoulder mobility. All of these things are critical. You don't want to be the guy that lives but that can't move. And why is that? As we age, one of the primary factors that can be deadly, believe it or not, is something as simple as falling and breaking a hip. If you do that when you're older, there is a good chance that this could have serious repercussions that you will not walk or recover from. Okay? As a matter of fact, it can cause a very quick ripple effect towards the negative, especially as we're older. So, mobility, the ability to move, to keep your balance, to uh, perform and move well, is critical in order to maintain your health span. So you can move, you can do things. All right. You don't need to max out. You know, you don't have to do anything crazy, but you do have to be able to move cleanly, walk well. You don't need to be a Olympic sprinter, but should be able to run if you have to, you know, jump, things of that nature. All right. So, next thing, metabolic precision, another non negotiable. You should have stable glucose, however, you need to achieve that, be it through diet, exercise. If you happen to be a diabetic, you've got to make sure that you take your insulin, follow your doctor's advice, okay, whatever that may be, so that your glucose levels are stable. It will affect your brain, it will affect your body composition, it will affect your mood. These are all related to glucose and glucose management, and that's why it's so important to have that stable glucose. Related, controlled insulin, same thing. You know, your insulin response is critical. If it's good, it allows you to, you know, lose weight quickly, build muscle, be overall healthier and fitter. So it's important to control your insulin. Third, utilize strategic carbs. Carbs, we've talked about this many times on the podcast. Carbs are not the enemy, okay? Like carbs are fuel energy and they're muscle sparing. You just need to understand when and where to place them and how to not overdo them. And that is a subject that could be an entire other video. But be aware that your management of carbohydrates, whatever you decide, is very important for your metabolic precision. And the other thing is no emotional eating chaos. You need to get your nutrition definitely like under control, especially if you have a problem. If you have a problem, be it behavioral or emotional, you need to address it. You need to address that root source, because you can't be perfectly on plan all day and then have that emotional binge eat at the end of the day and undo everything that you worked for. Okay. So that's very, very important that you control that emotional eating. Number fourth, pillar, if you will, to improve your physique in this third act, recovery as a strategy. So, what am I talking about here? Let's talk about sleep tracking. How is your sleep? Are you getting enough of it? Do you understand sleep hygiene? We have videos on this channel that go in depth as to how to improve your sleep hygiene and your sleep practices to guarantee optimal sleep. I suggest you watch them if you're not familiar with that. HRV monitoring. If you have an Apple Watch or a wearable tracking device, pay attention to that HRV. Don't get obsessed about it. A lot of people get really obsessive about HRV. It's just as a trend, as a general trend. You want to keep an eye out on it because it will help indicate if you're recovering well. You will see it in your HRV trends over time, and it's a long time term metric too. You know, it's not about this day and that day and the other day. It worked, didn't work. No, you got to keep an eye out on that. Parasympathetic activation. That's the other thing. You've got to keep that in mind so that you understand your recovery and how it affects your recovery. And again, there are other videos about parasympathetic activation on our channel, and I'm going to make a dedicated one that will come out shortly, so we can dive in deeper into this if it's something you're interested. And the last is, if you do strength training, resistance training, make sure to have some structured deloads in there. Make sure that that you're keeping an eye on the long game. Weight training, strength training, building muscle is a long, strategic, years long process. Having those deloads ensures that you're always in the best shape to not abuse your body, give it some time to recover, adjust. You will not lose muscle if you deload for a week. It takes a lot more than that to lose that hard-earned muscle. I understand a lot of people get nervous about it. I get nervous about it, okay? But a deload, a structured deload as part of your routine, of your recovery strategy is key. It's on point. And lastly, blood work is a non-negotiable at this age. We're done playing games. We're 50 plus. We got to keep an eye out on those blood work markers. And what do I expect or hope that you would keep an eye on? Your testosterone levels, if you're a man, especially, but even women, because testosterone is a human hormone. It's not just a male hormone. Your estradiol and your estrogen, definitely, you want to keep an eye on that. That it's balanced, that it's in range, because having it too high or too low does have some health effects that are negative, or can be very negative, depending. So you want to definitely make sure that your estrogen and estrogen levels are, in a healthy range. Your fasting insulin, that's another easy marker. Easy. Test that every so often. Make sure that your fasting insulin is under control. If you start seeing it creep up in the morning when you're fasted, that's not a good sign that you should talk to your medical provider as soon as possible to see what's going on and dive deeper, because you don't want that to get out of hand. It might be something as simple as you change a change in your diet or a change in your activity, something that's easily correctable. But as soon as you see it, you should mention it to your healthcare provider. Let's see, your ApoB, another critical test to keep an eye on for inflammation purposes and so forth. So make sure that that's in range. Your HSCRP, similarly, again, to make sure that those are two markers that if they're in range, give a very solid picture of your inflammation and the state of your well-being overall. And then last, your thyroid markers. A hypo or hyperthyroidism, they both have different effects. Not good if they're out of control. So you definitely want to keep an eye out on that. If you find it hard to lose weight, for example, you might have an underactive thyroid. There's like a million things that you can watch. But basically, the message is this: you cannot optimize what you refuse to measure. So keep an eye out on at least those markers, and talk to your doctor. Encourage the conversation with your doctor. Doctor, what are the parameters that you look at for overall general health? What should we be looking at? What are the trends? Have the conversation, okay, with your doctor. Okay. Act 3, this play that is the setting the stage up for success as we age, for that third stage or third act. So hormone stress in the nervous system, and this is where most men lose the game because they keep training harder, but their nervous system is fried. And the third act requires stress architecture. You must design stress, not react to it, okay? Don't let it happen to you. Engineer it, okay? So what do I mean by that? An example of this would be learning some dopamine discipline. And what do I mean by that? High performers, especially ADHD wired ones like me, burn out because they live in caffeine spikes, intensity addiction, overtraining cycles, and digital overstimulation, to name a few things. Your nervous system is not broken, okay? It's simply overloaded because these things are causing massive input and stress, okay? So in order to reinvent, what you require are dopamine fasting windows. We have an entire, again, video on how to work with your dopamine understanding and so forth. I suggest you watch that. But definitely think about including some dopamine fasting windows in your life. Caffeine, intentional caffeine use. No more than 1 or 2 cups a day, and again, we have a video about how to properly use coffee and caffeine from a health perspective. Cold exposure, for some, it's used strategically, can be good also to help manage stress. But don't do it compulsively. Don't do it like all the time or every day or whatever. This is a tactical approach or a tactical solution that you will deploy when necessary when you're overstressed. And the other thing, the last one, and it's so weird for me that I have to say this, but I am guilty of not being aware of this, and it is structured rest. Your sleep should be non-negotiable in most days. There are always exceptions. Things change, plans change, but as a general rule, your structured rest periods, whatever those may be that you need, I mean, some people need a short nap in the afternoons. 20 minutes does it, and it helps them function for the rest of the day perfectly. Whatever that structured rest is, deloads that we just talked about during weight training, you have to structure that, okay, and respect those boundaries, because you cannot dominate life with a fried nervous system. It's not going to work. All right. Act 4, identity death and psychological upgrade. Now we're getting deep. This is the real third act work right here. And it is, pause for dramatic effect, if you will, killing the old version of you, the insecure competitor, the validation seeker, the approval addict, the guy trying to arrive. In your third act, hopefully, you stop trying to impress other people and you start trying to create impact on yourself, okay? That's what you want. You stop chasing status, okay? What you're doing now is building a legacy, okay? You stop performing discipline. Now you embody discipline. It's part of you. Okay, it should be integrated. So there are 3 identity shifts that you've got to keep in mind. One is changing your mindset from being reactive to being proactive. Remember, for example, how we talked about that structured rest. That's a perfect example of being proactive rather than reactive, rather than, oh man, I'm fried and stressed now, so now I'm going to plan, that nap or that rest or start sleeping. Should be the other way around. If you had this structured already, we wouldn't be having this conversation because you wouldn't have a fried nervous system, okay? So from being reactive in life to being proactive, to taking advantage, okay? And having a plan and being tactical. Second, forget about proving yourself. You've had 50 years to prove yourself. We know what you can do. Now it's all about producing, making new things happen, making your plan exist, bringing it to life, whatever that may be. So again, the focus is not, proving it in order to show off to neighbors. Now it's all about you. It's about producing for you and your loved ones and your family. And then from ego, I know everything, blah, blah, blah. You now can work yourself towards actual mastery of these topics and of your own fate, okay? And rather than coming from an ego-driven place, you're coming at it from this is a healthcare priority need. What do I need to do? And that shows mastery, because you don't need applause anymore. That influence is irrelevant. Who cares? What you need is alignment so you can meet your goals. So the blueprint. Let's talk about the blueprint for this third act. Here's an example of a very basic generic example of a Rise41 third act protocol. Something I would start the conversation with one of my clients, one of my newer clients. And it would be this. So the first one is audit ruthlessly. Have no mercy when you audit the following: your body fat percentage, your blood markers. Again, respect that blood work, your sleep hours, your financial structure, and your emotional triggers. What are the things that cause you to react or act in an irrational manner because it's an emotional overload or trigger? Be aware of those. So again, you got to audit the following things ruthlessly. I'll say them again. Your body fat percentage. You need to have that 15% or below for men. I'd say 25, 20% or so for females. Don't quote me on that. I just happen to have all male clients at this moment. But in any case, body fat percentage, your blood markers and your blood work, CBCs and all that good stuff, you got to keep an eye on that. Your sleep hours, again, got to keep an eye on those. Your financial structure, you got to do that for sure. And then last but not least, let's talk about things that beyond auditing, things that will remove friction. This is important. No more alcohol if at all possible. Alcohol is not good at any dosage at all. Okay, so if you can avoid it, you're going to be ahead of the game. So I understand that for some people that's not an option. They enjoy a drink with their social life, a drink or two here or there. If that's you, okay. I mean, understand like the impact. Then, if it's 1 or 2 drinks a week, there is some impact, but it's not do or die. If you're still binge drinking in your 50s, you have a real problem that you absolutely need to address, because nothing will destroy your health faster than that. So, late night scrolling, another thing that adds friction because it keeps your brain engaged, then you can't rest. So, late night scrolling, bad idea. Poor food environment, absolutely terrible. If you don't have the proper nutrition, you're not going to build anything. It's going to be like spinning your wheels in mud. What good is a race car if you're in mud instead of like a racetrack? Same thing here. Energy draining relationships. If it's causing you negative stress, you need to let go of that, because it's not going to get better and it's not going to be good for you. Third piece of the plan is rebuild strategically. So what are we talking about? Periodized training, have a strength training, weight management plan, targeted supplementation. Absolutely. You got to keep that in mind. Anti-inflammatory nutrition. Be aware of what inflames you and what your inflammation markers are, so you can take care of that. Breathwork protocols, box breathing, etc. Learn those. And a morning sunlight routine. Real simple. When you wake up and you see that sunrise, enjoy it. Go embrace that morning sunlight. All right, number 4, and last, it's reinforcing your identity. You need to, a good practice is a weekly reflection. Take the time to see where you are, where you come every week. Quarterly blood work. So every quarter, related to the above, you got to keep an eye on that blood work, because you got to make sure that it actually is in range, and that if there is an issue, catch it early, because usually when you catch it earlier, it's easier to resolve rather than ignoring it and then having a catastrophic situation later, potentially. Okay. Annual physical benchmarks, whatever those may be, your HRV, your resting heart rate, your weight target, body fat percentage. Keep those benchmarks and keep an eye on them, because it will help indicate it's not just the scale. The scale without context is meaningless. So again, you got to keep an eye on that. Mentorship or a brotherhood or sisterhood circle, having a good influence of people, like-minded people, and socialization is vitally important to keep you engaged and part of your process. So, and part of life, and to thrive. So again, you want to have that mentorship or a brotherhood circle, people that you that fulfill your social need as a human being, as a social animal, okay, to learn, to thrive, and to have like-minded people, like, help each other out, encourage each other as we move forward. All right. So here's the real question now. Let's just wrap this whole thing up. Who are you becoming for the next 20 years? Okay. You're in your mid 50s. You still got a good 20 years, which is a good amount of time. It's not inconsequential, because here's the truth. Your third act is the first time you fully understand consequences, like we mentioned before. So you now know what happens if you ignore your health, if you stay overweight, if you ignore stress, you stay complacent. You've seen men decline. You see it all the time. You don't have to. You can become leaner at 45 than at 30. I did. Calmer at 50 than at 35. I'm working on that. I'm not good at this yet. Stronger at 55 than at 40. I'm 54 and I am far stronger than I ever have been in my entire life. And this is not ego. It's discipline compounded. Okay? That's what this is. So, all right, listen. Let me just close this video out with, again, I threw a lot of stuff out there. This is like an overview. If you're interested in more detail, we do discovery calls. A 15-minute discovery call is free of charge. In case you want to work with us, with the Rise41 team, just book it on our website at rise41.com. You'll find it. And let's see if you're interested. We'll talk during that discovery phase. We'll see if we're a good fit for each other, because that's the other thing. It's not just that I work with you, but we have to be in kind of the same place, right? Coming at it with the same ideas in order to make this work. Okay. So again, this video and this mindset of the third act isn't about anti-aging. It's about pro mastery. The third act should not be you slowing down. It should be you sharpening like a fine sword blade. You're sharpening. And you don't drift into greatness and making great things happen for you or to you. You have to engineer that success. So if you're ready to stop coasting and start optimizing, share this with someone who refuses to decline. And if you're serious about building the strongest, leanest, most focused version of yourself in this next chapter, that's what we do here. This is Rise41. We don't age, we refine. And hey, I'll see you on the next one. Hit like, subscribe, all the good stuff. Leave me a comment if you found this helpful. And again, see you on the next one. And this is Gonzo, and I am out.